going on, Jeromes? Beautiful Saturday. Birds are chirping in-ish. It's actually kind of cold. It's actually going to warm up here next couple days. Doesn't matter. Weather podcast coming soon. But time for 5 good questions from you guys in the chat. Thank you much for everyone who submitted questions for this week. It'll pop up in the community tab. We'll have a call out, and we'll read some of the good ones. First up is from Knackdog. With the San Francisco Louse, are the 49ers going to be the new team added to be going for Kirko Chains? P.S. If he does go somewhere else, he can't be Kirko Chains anymore. We retain the copyright. It's like when the Browns left to become the Ravens. Cleveland held on to the rights for the Browns. It's good. So I don't think that it's as far-fetched as people would think. I understand that you went to the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy, but it feels like Purdy played fine, and to a degree he outplayed Mahomes throughout most of the game, but the Niners were never really in danger of winning the Super Bowl, if that makes sense. Even though, yes, they had a lead, yes, they had this or the other thing, but could Purdy make that key throw when he needed to? It's where you always got the questions. It's the same thing with Jimmy Garoppolo with the Niners a couple years ago when they lost to Kansas City. It's just like you knew that PED Jimmy wasn't going to make those key throws. Now, we made the case before. If Cousins was on either one of the Niners Super Bowl teams, they win. Straight up. Right. And you got to look at San Francisco where the frustration has to be building. I mean, yes, before Shanahan got there, Harbaugh lost the Super Bowl. So they've lost 3 Super Bowls in the last 10, 12 years. Are they the modern day Buffalo Bills? Even though, yes, given their history with Montana, Bill Walsh, and Steve Young and whatnot, but it's got to be super tough. And you got to think, too, like the window is open-ish, but some of their key players are starting to age out. Like Christian McCaffrey is going to be 28, which may as well be 50 in running back years. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is going to be the same age where the Vikings moved on from Dalvin, and then Dalvin fell off a cliff. So it's important to note. Plus, I mean, McCaffrey's taken a lot of hits on that body. Fred Warner, I believe, is going to be 28, big-time leader there. Trent Williams probably going to be like 36, somewhere in there. So, I mean, that window, it's closing pretty quick. And could Purdy develop into an assassin, a guy that you win because of? Sure. But right now, he's a guy that you win with. And I don't know if that's good enough. But they would have to do some cap gymnastics. But, I mean, if Kirk is serious about winning a Super Bowl versus just getting paid, outside of Minnesota, he should go to the Niners. Not the Steelers, not the Falcons, not the Patriots. He should go to San Francisco. But actually, since the Vikings are in the NFC, I would really hate that too, because I think San Francisco would be dynamite. Next up, Angel Duster. Would you trade JJ for 2 first-rounders and change, and in return, with one of those first-rounders, draft Marvin Harrison Jr.? So basically the question is, so if the Vikings get into the top 3 or 4, let me pull this up. This is a really good pod. All right, so the Vikings have to trade into the 3 slot or the 4 slot, but I mean, I don't think they would trade into 4 unless it's for a quarterback. I don't think that they would trade into 3 unless it's for a quarterback. And if you're Arizona at 4, basically it's a similar question to the one that was posed. Like, why would you trade for Jefferson and significant assets when you could just take Harrison Jr.? Now, the thing about it is that, hey, Harrison Jr. is likely going to be a stud, likely going to be an absolute gem. I see the A.J. Green comparisons. I think that they're pretty apt, but you know that Justin Jefferson is already the best receiver in the game. So it's a bird in the hand versus 2 in the bush situation. Now, I mean, if you're able to secure your quarterback of the future, maybe. So then you'd have Harrison Jr. and your quarterback of the future, but that's a tall ask. And not waiting for another year in gambling that your first-round pick or the other first-round pick that you get is going to be high. And also next year's quarterback class is right now seen as going to So, nah. R-Free. What is Kwesi's plan for the Rooster? Seems he's letting most of Rick's guys walk without compensation, but I feel that like he's failed to replace the depth and talent in the draft for agency. Are we going to be worse off overall next year without a serious influx of talent? He's got to hit on this draft. And yes, the whole thing about so you let Thielen go, you drafted Addison. Pretty good to go there. You let Patrick Peterson go, you drafted Mekhi Blackman. Pretty decent. You let Kendricks go, Ivan Pace Jr., check. And also, I do feel like Lewisine was drafted to replace Harrison. We'll see if that actually happens, if Harrison retires or is cut. But yeah, I mean, the Vikings, they do have a big hole because of that 2022 draft class where it would have been nice if Scene and Booth and Asama would have really stepped up. I mean, the only real contributor from that class, consistent contributor, has been Ed Ingram, who greatly improved in year 2 versus his rookie season. But yeah, I mean, it's a spot too where missing on Davenport really hurts, not just money wise, but I mean, he was supposed to play a very large role in that pass rush, and the Vikings couldn't consistently get a pass rush with 4. So that's tough. And yeah, I mean, no GM is going to be perfect or bat 1,000, but I do think that I agree with his logic of moving on from players a year too early versus a year too late, even if you can't just trade them. Like, in retrospect, obviously no one is going to trade for Dalvin. In retrospect, maybe they should have traded Daniil at the deadline if they didn't have any chance at re-signing him. Maybe, but that's all hindsight. But they got to hit in free agency this year. They got to hit on the draft, and that's what it comes down to. Next up, number 4, John D. With the new overtime rules, was it a better choice to defer the kickoff for 49ers? If they had deferred, they might have won since Chiefs would have punted on 4th down. So this has been debated forever, and I feel like the people who are adamant that it is 100% best to take the ball second, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think that there are definitely advantages for going second because you can use all 4 downs, you know what you need, etc. But there are some pluses for going first, too. I mean, notably, so taking it out of a vacuum, that 49ers defense was gassed, was completely gassed after that last Kansas City drive. So giving them a blow, I mean, does make some sense. And plus, you put the Kansas City's defense back on, because if you had gone second, your defense is out there back to back. Their defense gets an extended rest, especially with the overtime setup, and then all of a sudden they're back to nearly full strength or close as it can be late in the game. That does have to factor in. Plus, they did get Kansas City to 4th down. I think if Kansas City went first, I think they still go for it. Like there was sort of in no man's land. And also it was a short 4th and 1. So I don't think that they just punt there. I just really don't. And then in terms of, so you get the ball first, march down and score, all that stuff. But also you get the ball third when it flips to third, if applicable, when it flips to sudden death. So if it goes 0-0, 3-3, 6-6, 7-7, 8-8, you get the rock when it becomes sudden death, which is obviously a huge advantage. Plus, if it goes punt, you may have the ball with extremely good field position. Like you might get the ball at your own 35 or 40, somewhere in there, with only needing a field goal to win. So I mean, there's benefits to both sides. I don't think that it's 100% absolute that it's better to take it second, even though people are very adamant about that. But I think there's other factors to factor in, and yeah, I think Shanahan is crucified because it didn't work. But yeah, also it would have been hilarious because several 49ers said that they didn't know the new playoff overtime rules. So if San Francisco would have scored a touchdown on their opening overtime drive, would they have celebrated like they just won? I would have loved to have seen it. It would have been the greatest freezing cold takes ever. Lastly, Micah Hastry. Sign Kirk, trade back, and draft straight defense. I think the Vikings are going to try to have their cake and eat it too. But I feel like if they do re-sign Kirk, I think it will be a multi-year deal. I don't think that. I think Kirk will have multi-year offers on the table, and if he does run it back with the Vikings, I do think it will be on a 2 or 3 year contract, probably even 3. And I mean, you can try and have both, and you can still draft your quarterback of the future, whether in the first round. If Kirk is back, I don't see them trading up into the stratosphere, because also you lose the competitive advantage of having your starting quarterback on his rookie deal. Because if Kirk is back for 2-3 years, I mean, this guy is basically going to be Jordan Love, sitting for 3 seasons before getting on out there. But I still think that they could. If the right guy is there at 11, sure. If the right guy is there in the second round, sure. But yeah, I think if they re-sign Kirk, they're all in. And they need to rebuild that defense, especially that defensive line. So if they re-sign Kirk, I mean, I think that they could fudge the cap and really push things, kick the can down the road, and help. Maybe they go for a guy like Chris Jones. Maybe they go for a guy like Justin Matabuke. Maybe they go for high end pieces as well as go heavy defense in the draft and just really go for that pin. Because offensively, I mean, yeah, suture up the interior offensive line. Yeah, maybe add a running back and you're good to go. But defensively, they need an overhaul. And you saw how the Chiefs, with that influx of talent from that 2022 class, that defense really did carry them throughout the season. I mean, Mahomes gets all the credit, sure, as well as Mahomes on that final drive was great, but that defense is really what did it. And if the Vikings with Flores can get that defense into the top 10 and the offense stays what it is and everyone stays healthy, knocking on all the wood, Vikings can be super dangerous. And I would actually kind of like to see that because it feels like we've been in rebuild or competitive rebuild mode forever. But if they commit to Kirk, they got to be all in because then that Super Bowl window is like that. Then they really got to go for that pin, man. But that's it. That's a Q&A on this beautiful Saturday morning. You guys are the best. You know what to do. Skol, production value.